Helo, croeso pawb, a diolch yn fawr iawn am ymuno efo ni. Hello and welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us. So, fel ydych chi'n clywed, dwi'n mynd i trio wneud y sgwrs mae heno yn dwyieithog, trio. I'm going to try and do this talk bilingually tonight, and introductions and stuff and so on. Hwn di'r trydydd sgwrs da ni wedi gynnal ar gyfres yma. A hyn yma da ni fel Denise Baker, Rebecca F. Hardy, Susan Cantrill-Williams. So tonight we've got Denise Baker, Rebecca F. Hardy, and Susan Cantrill-Williams, who'll be presenting for us tonight. So just to give you a bit of background, in case you don't know, I'm Menna, I'm the coordinator of Carn, and this is our members show. And this is the annual one we do every year, where members get to partake responding to a brief. So, rhag ofn fych chi'n mynd ymwybodol, mae hein yn arddangosfa dan ni'n gynnal bob blwyddyn i aelodau i ymateb i brief, a lenni pwnc neu'r brief oedd Trawsnewid. So this year's brief was transition, and everybody here who's partaken in that. So we'll get started, and we'll start with Denise. So for those of you who've visited the exhibition, she's done a photography piece called Jane in Transition, Jane Mount yn Trawsnewid, neu Mewn Trawsnewid, dwi'n cofio'n iawn. So dwi'n mynd i rhoi chi drosodd i Denise. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. Croeso, everyone. So yeah, I'm gonna, before I talk about the picture that I've got in the exhibition at the moment, I'm going to talk about some of my other work and what kind of drives my practice, and what kind of work I make. Yeah, feel free to ask questions at any time. I'm going to share my screen. So I'm just going to go through some of the photographs and talk about talk about my practice and the impact of being locked down and COVID on my practice. And then I'll go and talk about the piece that's in the exhibition. So I suppose I consider myself a visual storyteller, really. I'm a portrait photographer and a documentary photographer. I do a lot of street photography. I photograph a lot of protests. But I'm showing I haven't always been a photographer and worked creatively as my primary kind of employment. So I started off as a psychologist, and so I suppose a lot of my previous career as a psychologist, because I was a qualitative research specialist, which involved interviewing. I interviewed a lot of people, a lot of recorded interviews, recorded dialogue, collecting stories, and observational research. So I kind of see that career, which I did for 16 years, has really informed and overlapped my photographic practice. And even though I haven't worked creatively professionally until after I finished working as a psychologist, I've always taken photographs since I was 11, really. So I kind of started exhibiting work about 5 years ago. I hadn't really had the confidence to do it, even though I was making sort of reams and reams of photographic work. And this is the first picture that I exhibited, the first portrait really that I kind of put out there. And I still love it. It's a picture of my daughter. It's got quite a lot of, positive feedback as a picture. And that was the thing that really kick-started my creative practice and got me to start putting work out there. So portraiture is quite an important part of my practice, and particularly working on film. I just kind of love the tactile, like getting into the dark room, developing my own prints, but also working, scanning negatives, working digitally, and kind of playing around with them in Photoshop. I look for a story. A lot of my work is looking for a story, something that is underneath. Whether if it's a portrait, it's a look. I love these because it's just the look in her eye. And for me, it's about interacting with the people that I'm photographing. So a lot of the models that kind of pose for me in this kind of photograph are people that I know. I photograph friends, I photograph family, like with my daughter. That's my daughter. I photograph my family, I photograph my friends. And I suppose that underlies my practice, that it's about building a relationship for me, or kind of, yeah, it's about building a relationship and seeing what's beneath the surface. This is another picture that I was doing a photo shoot for the previous lady that was in the previous pictures, and behind the scenes, like when I wasn't doing the kind of professional photo shoot bit, behind the scenes I was taking photographs on medium format and looking for something that was maybe a bit different. And this picture was exhibited in gallery as part of their open exhibition, and I just love it. I've got a thing about double exposures as well. It's kind of like that it's a layered approach to making a picture. I like reflections and shadows, and just, yeah, looking for something a bit different. So I started working on different series of pictures as part of Arts Council funding and doing some R&D work. And one of the projects I worked on was with the travellers in North Wales, and this is one of the pictures I took for that. So it was a couple of years ago that I started, I kind of moved from making individual pictures and kind of a scattergun approach to making longer series of pictures and longer documentaries. And this was the start point, I suppose, of building stories of people. And a lot of the work that I do, I also I record dialogue. So I will do interviews, and we will have conversations that are recorded, or I will ask people to write things for me to go along with the portraits that I'm making, so that I've got a full rounded story. I suppose I'm just working as a photographer as I would a psychologist. So a lot of my street photography work is, I'm a bit addicted to photographing protests, but not the kind of hidden bits, the not the kind of stuff that would go in the newspapers, but the messages, the stories, the kind of like just snippets. Like these photographs here were, well, they were taken at various anti-Trump, anti-racism protests. You'll see a lot of my work like that. Just capturing moments on the street. And I suppose it is it reportage, or is it street photography? I don't know. It's kind of like all of those melded into one, I suppose. This is a more recent one. These were actually taken last week at the Million Mask March in London, but it actually just turned into sort of 400 fairly angry anti-lockdown protesters playing a game of cat and mouse with the police around London, which culminated in quite a lot of arrests, including one of my photographer buddies who didn't have a press card. We couldn't rescue him from the kettle. But yeah, so it's those kind of like captured moments that tell a story, like the look in somebody's eye, or a placard or a message. that I kind of want to capture. In terms of long series of photographs, this is a project that I've got going on at the moment, and this is one of my primary kind of focuses right now. I've been visiting the HS2 Stop HS2 protest camps and kind of getting to know a lot of the protesters, the people that are living in the trees and protecting the trees, the people that are making, you know, they're just protecting the woodland. So I've been making portraits with them and collecting written dialogue, written stories, but also just kind of hanging out at the camps and taking part in actions and photographing, you know, just the everyday sort of debris of camp life, and, you know, where people are living, what the things that they're making. Like these guys down here are making, if you can see in the bottom photograph, it looks like they've just got balls with string off of them, but they've got a little production line of wrapping apples in this kind of mesh stuff that they can throw into the trees, which basically stops the chainsaws from being able to get through the branches. So they tangle into the branches. It looks like they're just like making a mess in the woods. So like if you see the press saying, oh, they've left all this rubbish in the woods, there's actually a reason for doing it, in that because they tangle in the branches, the guys have to physically remove all of the bits of string and the apples wrapped in the string before they can start chainsawing. So it just slows down their work. And like most of the protesters know that that they're not going to stop it until it's stopped in the courts. So all they can do is slow everything down. So this is an ongoing project. I started it in September and it's going to run as long as it runs, just capturing life and people in the camps. And in contrast to that, I, again, going back to the portraits, but the double exposure portraits. So some of these are made in camera and some of them are then made in Photoshop. And this is a project that I've got going on, just capturing women in nature, in the space that, you know, in the place that makes them feel most in touch with nature. And just kind of women in their spaces, really, and what makes them feel good. It's just, and this is another ongoing project that that is just going to keep running and running. Okay. So over lockdown was actually really good for me in the beginning. I was really productive, and during like the early stages of lockdown, I would just get out and about and walk around the sort of square mile where I live. And Bex, you might recognize this person because we live in the same village pretty much. So I just got chatting to this guy, Phil. He's a local farmer, and I would just stop and talk to him every day out on my walk. And I would have my camera with me, and we got talking, and it got to the point where he was just chatting to me on the gate, and I was like, oh, can I take your picture? And he was like, yeah, all right then. And he just kind of stood there, and I made his portrait. And slowly his ponies, the ponies, you can see the foal there, but the ponies in the field were pregnant, expecting foals. So it was this kind of little, I suppose it was a bit of a kitchen sink drama. It was just this little kind of story unfolding of me getting to know him and chat to him and chat to his grandson and watching the foals being born, and him inviting me in to take some photographs. And then when the foal was born, you know, watching his grandson kind of, you know, taming the pony really, so that they could get close to it. And I eventually submitted it to the Paris Photo Awards, the little series, and got an honourable mention in the awards. So I was a bit taken aback by it. But so it was kind of like, actually, this lockdown's been all right for me. I've done quite well, because it's really focused my mind on producing a series that has a start and an end. And I suppose one of the things with my work is that I'm never quite sure where the start or the end is. And I kind of have a bit of a scattergun approach. I take lots of photographs of lots of things. And I was looking for that kind of story that had a beginning and an end. And that was it for me. So, and I suppose this is the picture that is in the exhibition. So Jane in transition. The Jane in question is somebody that I know, and I asked if I could photograph her in as part of a series that I was doing with the transgender community in North Wales. And so this is, most of these photographs are made on film, either medium format or 35mm. I kind of took these two photographs back to back in camera, and there was just something about the way they sat together. It was kind of telling this story of change, of like becoming somebody else. And I really liked the way that the picture on the right, as you look at the screen, is looking back at the picture on the left, as though they're kind of observing their own transition, observing their change, and the whole process of being made up. And this, you know, there's a kind of psychological, like a watching this becoming somebody else, and I don't know, it's quite a reflective look, I think, and I kind of look at it sometimes and wonder what is being imagined, or what's going through the person, you know, Jane on the right's, what's going on in their head as they're being made up. And obviously it's quite powerful, because without the hair as well, because that's the final touch. It's like becoming Jane, which is what the whole series of photographs that I took with various people became, you know, the whole project was known as Becoming Jane, because that wig was the final step to the transition. And this was the first time Jane had ever been photographed, not fully made up. You know, it's either Ed, who's the guy, or Jane. And Jane is a distinct person from Ed. So nobody sees the in-between apart from the person that's doing the makeup. So I felt quite privileged to be given that access and be trusted to take that picture, those pictures. So yeah, I suppose that's it.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Denise. It was it's really nice to know your background and stuff, because I haven't known you that long either myself. So that was quite interesting. And I think it explains a bit about your work as well, your background in psychology. So we've had a few comments in already. So
okay.
I'll go for that, and I'll open up again to people that if you've got anything to say, or if you want to make any comments, if you've got any question, please do so in either the chat box or the Q&A. And then panelists, you can ask away afterwards if you want as well. So we've had a question from Peter Lewis, who is one of our presenters last week. Do you find human behaviour, the psychology of how we act, fertile ground for your work? We act sometimes passionately and impulsively. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm an avid people watcher. So, you know, I am always looking for something, some little interaction, and human behaviour is fascinating. I do love watching all these kind of like little interactions between people. people have always often said to me that they feel a bit daunted because they think that I'm watching what they're doing. Are you analysing me? Maybe a little bit, but no. They always say, no, of course I'm not. But I have it's a weird relationship with the camera when you're photographing maybe quite volatile situations or emotional situations. I was in London recently photographing around Grenfell and with some of the community in Grenfell, and I found myself photographing some of the graffiti and the stuff left behind, like the memorials and the little shrines to people. And while I photographed, I was quite focused, and as soon as I took that camera away, I was absolutely in floods of tears. So that there's that kind of like, behind a camera is a step away, you're kind of observing what's going on, but maybe a little bit dispassionately. And I don't know if that answers the question. I mean, certainly impulsively. It's like on protests, it's quite passionate and impulsive, and it's really interesting watching. Okay.
Yeah, I think it comes across really clearly in your work as well. Do you know what I mean? So, and then we've just had a comment from Laura saying that she just wants to say it was really interesting, Denise.
Thank you, Laura.
I was just wondering, because there's the beautiful black and white images that you take and the documentations, and then the contrast then with this sort of double exposure, quite, I don't know, otherworldly sort of feeling, kind of fantasy. Not that I'm asking you to choose, but, you know, why is such a contrast in sort of, because I can imagine that you've that one is impulsive, spontaneous, you have a structure, but then you're in the moment and you have to take that moment. While the other, I guess, is more considered, build up that rapport, you know, finding more about the person you're going to photograph. And I'm just wondering, they're very, very different approaches, and that whether you favour one, or is it that happy, you know, what is it?
No, I think it probably reflects what's going on in my head most of the time. That it's a bit, it's a bit, you know, I kind of like that fantasy world a little bit, and creating kind of ethereal, floaty, feminine kind of shapes. But then I also really embrace that kind of really stark, kind of black and white. Yeah, I think it's a bit like, I don't really want to be pigeonholed, and I don't really want to be this is the photographer that does this, because there's a lot of things that I like, and a lot of things that inspire me. And yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of photographers that they do certain kind of work, and that's expected of them. And I don't want that expectation. I don't like it, because that expectation then kind of like, you put that on yourself, and you stop experimenting, and you stop trying new things. And like during lockdown as well, I was making cyanotypes a lot, and I'd never made them before. And I just kind of started talking to other artists that were making cyanotype photos and and I just loved it. And, you know, at the end of lockdown, it's kind of like, I put it to one side, but, and I just see it, that was something for me, you know, and because I just like to create lots of different things.
No, I can totally relate to that completely. Yeah.
I've just noticed that Morgan's put a question in there as well about which photographers influenced me. How did they influence my thinking, photographing? I don't know, Morgan. I've got a lot of photographers that have interested me, have inspired me. A lot of women photographers, to be honest, like Nan Goldin and Diane Arbus, and Berenice Abba. They're all kind of, there's they're all photographers of the street or the personal, and it's that kind of, I suppose they're also people that are looking for a story. Yeah, Nan Goldin, I suppose, yeah, not as graphic as Nan Goldin, because she was like right in there, but so yeah, I guess, and other photographers, I don't know, I'm an avid reader and looker of photography books, and I suppose the books that I read very much reflect what's going on in my head. You know, it's like Pete Smith, who's an Irish photographer, and his photographs of the traveller community in Ireland. They're very like stark black and white, whereas Nan Goldin's are all kind of like grainy colour on film. And so, yeah. Thank you.
So, diolch yn fawr. Iawn, da ni'n mynd i symud ymlaen i Rebecca F. Hardy wan, neu Bex, wel mae pawb yn nabod hi. So we're going to move on to Rebecca F. Hardy now, or as Bex, as everybody knows her. Mae gen Bex darn o waith o'r enw Llyr Giniad, sori, mae'n rhaid i edrych o fyny, 2020, sydd yn gwaith screen prints, sy'n cael ei gosod o fe gilydd. So Bex has done a installation of some screen prints in response to the brief, and I'm going to pass you over to Bex. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Menna. So dwi'n mynd i siarad yn dwyieithog, fod mae brain fi'n dyslexic, so rhowch amser i fi trio sortio fe gyd yn pen fi. Dwi'n dangos chydig y lluniau hefyd. So I'm going to speak bilingual. But bear with me, because my dyslexic brain goes into a freeze sometimes. So I might have some blank looks, but luckily I've got some slides, so you can look at the slides while I get blank. Ond cynta, dwi eisiau dweud fatha, dwi yn artist aml bwrpas, so dwi'n gwneud lot o gwaith mewn wahanol ffyrdd. Ac fod yna i fod y proses neu defnydd dwi'n defnyddio yn newid. Neu mae'r thema, neu dwi'n ymateb i thema. So I am kind of a multidisciplinary artist, or I'm an artist that just plays with a lot of different materials and processes and themes as well. But there's some kind of an undercurrent to all. But you know, what Denise was just saying really kind of resonates to me, that you know, I don't focus just on one material. So dwi just siarad amdan yr gwaith sydd yn cydweithio neu ar y cyd efo'r darn sgen mi yn y sioe. So really amdan patryma o'r ymennydd a lliwiau, a dwi bod yn neud hyn esbellan wan. So I'm going to concentrate on just what's in the exhibition and that work that I've been doing for redid it, kind of came upon that work again in 2017, but it's work that I've always been doing for a while around colour and pattern and a lot to do with the brain. And you can all see that. Happy days. Right, okay. So I've always been interested in the pattern of the brain. I came across a Victorian anatomy image that I absolutely loved. And I kind of took it as I work very much between 2D and 3D and installation. I very much kind of at the beginning just did lots of plaster casts, drying clay. And I started doing this plastic drawing that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. And it was something that I threw to a corner, as I normally do in my studio or in my house. And I sat in a tube somewhere for about 3 years until I found it again in 2017. And something in it just kind of clicked in my brain, and the enjoyment of working on that plastic see-through surface, and also the repetitive motions of the patterns. And it was this kind of repetitiveness that I find that does get repeated in quite a lot of my work, whether that is doing a performance, a video, or or creating pieces of work for an installation. So using Posca pens, drawing on plastic, really wanted to figure out that connection between items that are 2D surface and 3D. Much of my work always ends up being more installation based. And this is a piece that I did for a project in 2018 in Llandudno by an artist called Lana Tyson, invited me and 4 other artists to do a project called Mum. And it was about female mother artists who are also mothers. And I've never done any work about being a mother before. I hadn't never really thought about it in a way. It was like in my head, I am a man, but but I am an artist, and I kept them very separate. And it was a really, really good project to be part of. I was part of it for about a month. And this blue fabric, you might not be able to see it, but there's this blue fabric on this bit of wood that I've painted gold. And I was in Pontio Fab Lab, and I loved just everyone, when random people would come behind me and go, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm just doing, I'm embroidering forceps onto this blue bit of fabric." They're expecting some kind of cute little, I don't know what they were expecting, to be honest. But I kind of, it was a really good project. I tend to use, because I'm always balancing things around in my life, having projects, having deadlines, having something to work towards is how my practice gets developed and gets pushed, I guess. And once again, simplifying colours down, simplifying forms, those little bits of plastic rubbish on the floor, when the light came through that window, I created the most amazing shadows. There's also an image of me being rather narcissistic, where I played with the plastic in front of my face and I took some self-portraits, but luckily you don't need to see that. And then also just in the same year, kind of pushing myself again and seeing where else can these drawings go. And I was really lucky that I was allowed to do the Caravan, which is Carnavan project, which we really, fingers crossed, really hope that we can resurrect and start again next year. And again, using the tools from Fab Lab in Pontio and using their vinyl cutter and creating this installation. I'm messing around with colour. I hadn't used very much colour in my previous work when it came to my installations, and I just wanted to see what on earth it would look like if I created this kind of vinyl installation inside this caravan on the promenade in Caernarfon, which many people kept on thinking I was some kind of fortune teller, which is pretty cool, but that really wasn't what I was doing. And the happy accident then with the little sculpture, which is all the negatives from all the drawings, because I didn't want to waste anything, because it is quite a wasteful machine and process, and just loving this kind of spontaneous of almost like a child again, when you're getting all the sticky tape off a parcel and you get a scrumpet in your hand. But it was just that kind of spontaneous kind of creating these forms and shapes, but they're all the negatives from the brain's drawings. I am waffling now, aren't I? A wedyn, arall Carnarfon, nes I gael fy gwahodd I arddangos yn gwyl llawn sydd hefyd yn Llandudno. Ac unwaith eto, o'n i eisiau arbrofi y gweld be fysa darlun feinol yn edrych eto. Ond tro yma yn pwrpasol meddwl fwy amdano y lliwiau o'n i eisiau defnyddio. So unwaith eto, o'n i'n ail wneud yr glas ac y pinc ac graer sydd wedi cael ei defnyddio blaen. So I got invited to exhibit along with loads of amazing other artists from North Wales in part of the festival llawn. And I wanted to experiment again, see what another vinyl drawing would look like. But this time I'm concentrating on my colours, and I'm considering why am I using these colours, and knowing that these combination worked really well last time, and these colours are linked to that kind of MAM project. I wanted to experiment, but also I just kind of love the fact that I just shoved that plastic on the floor like it's some bit of crap waste and you just like plonk it in the corner. But yeah, I'm really, it's spontaneous, it's play, it's aesthetic, it's finding this composition. Yeah, mae gwaith fi'n just, mae yn arbrofol, mae o yn gweld perthynas rhwng yr elfen 2D ac yr elfen 3D, ac hefyd mae lliw yn dod mewn i'r gwaith hefyd. Dwi'n cofio hwn, dwi'n werthus efo teitls, byth yn cofio teitl, ond dwi'n cofio bod hwn wedi cael ei galw'n afiach, achos oedd gen i fi hang-up masif amdano lliw pink. Rwan dwi'n mynd rhy drwg, ond ar y pryd, o'n i'n rili gwasau y bubblegum pink na, pob dim yn pink, princessy, ugh. So I was just saying that I do remember the title of this one. I am rubbish with my titles, always forget what I write down. And I called it Afiach, which I think really sounds exactly what it means. If you think of it in English, it's like, it's disgusting or horrible. And I just think the word afiach is in itself is just a beautiful word. But for this, you know, it was this kind of like this sugary bubblegum pinkness, yeah, of what we're meant to represent. But I've dealt with pink now. Pink and me are fine. I've just bought a pink t-shirt which I'll wear tomorrow. But you know, it's kind of it's a relationship that I've had for a while. But also, and it's enjoyment of just seeing just different surfaces sitting next to each other. So production or work kind of slowed down for me. I got myself a full-time job, but there's kind of excitement about where these patterns, these repetitive patterns, I wanted to loosen them up. So it was quite hard. I'd gone from spending I did 5 months in the studio the previous year, and I went to 2019 where I spent 5 days in the studio. So it was a massive shock to my system and the way my creative brain worked. And I did this, I think this is the first day I'd been in the studio for a very long time. And I'd had these photographs hanging about for ages. And they were photographs of work. And I just grabbed Posca pens and I started drawing all over them. And I continued to draw again. I was really fortunate that work let me go to Venice for a month to look after Sean Edwards' work in the Wales in Venice, in the Venice Biennale last year. And I once again, I just carried on with these kind of repetitive, try to not think too much, try to be kind of subconscious, which is really difficult, and play with colour. So mwy o'r broses, mwy o bod yn rhydd efo'r darluniau, yn arbrofi gyda lliw, trio gweld y testyn yn lleihau fod o'n mwy debygol yn edrych fel patryma o'r frên, a falle fod o'n dal yn wad gan celloedd, ond just yn agor o fyny mewn ffordd i fod yn mwy haneithol, mwy abstract. A unwaith eto, mae gweithio 2D, ond mae rhaid i gwaith o hyd mynd mewn i gwaith 3D. So once again, I get pulled back into the sense of I can't just be a flat surface. I want it to have these bumps and these lumps, and you know, that purple thing right at the top of the corner is something I worked on a whole day, like 8 hours, and then to turn up somewhere and just go scrunch, you know, which in some people that would be, oh my God, how can you do that to your work? But for me, it brings on a new dimension to see it gone from something to kind of this has its own new life now, because and it's all still a working process. So as you can see, I still might have my tight drawings on this bit of plastic, but actually there's looser vinyl drawings that I'm cutting myself. It's once again, it's when the light comes, it's shadows. So unwaith eto mae'r cysgodion, mae'r perthynas rhwng y lliw, rhwng yr eitemau. Dwi wedi cychwyn wneud fatha o blaen oedd o eitha spontaneous, ac o'n i'n ail defnyddio darna hefyd. Felly, o'na byth, os o rwy'n eisiau gweld rhywbeth eto, oedd nhw'n methu mewn ffordd, achos o'n i wedi tynnu fo darna. So, before it was quite spontaneous, and I would reuse bits from other bits of installations. So if you asked me to kind of show this again, sometimes I was unable to, because I'd already taken it apart and repainted it. And maybe that's something to do with space and lack of materials, but also I just loved kind of taking it and rearranging it. But I had started, I would say, in the past year, to start drawing watercolours to get a rough idea of what I wanted to do, which I did do for this, for Glywed, which was at the beginning of this year, which was amazing to have something again to dedicate and get my brain into. And then obviously the pandemic happened. And I guess I've used this time to really to do as much work as possible, if I'm honest, because I have no idea whenever I'm ever going to get this chance again. And I had loads of materials just hanging around, and I grabbed them all out of the studio because I wasn't sure if I was allowed to go to the studio or not, and set up on my kitchen table. And I had a dodgy A4 screen with a squidgy, so that was good. And children's IKEA roll paper, a ruler from Coleg Menai as a spatula, and bought some ink online and started cutting copy decks, crap printer paper to make stencils, and just went for it. And using the sketchbooks that I had and making new sketchbooks of just random drawings, felt tip pens, watercolours, things that I would necessarily not really exhibit, but use as something to help me kind of build on to maybe an installation. I loved it. It was brilliant. It was my time on the kitchen table. It was imperfections. It was trying to teach myself a new skill. I know all of you, whoever, if you're watching and you're printmakers, I'm so sorry. But I absolutely loved it, and this is the piece I've got in, and it's just a mix of all the different works and they're all really rough, and this is an awful image, by the way, sorry, because it's overexposed. Neidio Gymraeg, wan, just yn mwynhau, dim pwysa I wneud dim byd berffaith, ymchwilio mewn I rhywbeth, dwi ddim yn argraffu sgrin, dim, sgan fi'm, dwi rioed I wneud o I fod yn onest, a dim difaru hynny am byd yn wneud o'n coleg a prifysgol. A just, arbrofi a gweld beth sy'n digwydd, ac gweld y lluniau yn dod o fyw o dy llyfr Breslin, ond nabod fi, ydy fi, I always want to bring it back to something that's 3D and plays around. So I am still doing my watercolours. I'm now playing around with air drying clay and using spray paint and acrylic paint, and I've just done watercolour to see what it looks like, and I am on the verge of waiting to get my exposed screens, which is rather exciting, to try and do some decent screen printing, hopefully before Christmas. And this piece actually is in Ty Pawb in the open, which is pretty cool as well, to think that I've done 2 new pieces of work and that they're both being exhibited. I have no idea where my work is going. When I think something is finished, it gets a new lease of life. So, but like I said, I work in lots of different themes. I also, I in the process of working with Jenny Cashmore, Naja Baji and Jamalo with Mewn Rung, which has been a fantastic experience over this period as well, to have that to concentrate on. And they're pushing me in places. And with that work, all I've been doing is using video as a sketchbook and photography, which is completely different to this. So yeah, I've realised I've been talking very much, and I was rubbish doing it dwyieithog, so ymddiheuro. Yeah, gai gwan.
Eita. Am fynd yn bach. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Bex. Thank you very much.
Diolch.
Diddorol ofnadwy. Fod i yn nabod chdi'n eitha da, ac yn gweld chdi'n eitha aml tu allan i'r amgylchiadau yma. Mae dal yn rhywbeth ddifyr glwyd a gweld chdi'n siarad am y gwaith. So, da iawn, Cyw. So, we've had some questions and some comments, so I'll ask you them. So we've had one from Peter Lewis, which says, how did the brain imagery first capture your imagination? What was it that first prompted you? It's fascinating.
So I'm dyslexic, and I also suffer ongoing mental health issues. So to know more about this organ in my head and how it functions was obviously the first thing. And then obviously there was, just finding these beautiful old anatomy, Victorian anatomy drawings, and just doing lots of different research, really. And I don't think that really comes across in my work, but obviously there's always underlying reasons why you do anything, to be honest. But just found it fascinating. But it's been a long time. Like, I've been for over 10 years, really, an obsession. So, but it's seeing, I think the process is more interesting. I think that was the initial idea, but now the colours and the relationship between 2D and 3D and spontaneity.
Okay, thank you. Cwestiwn gen Anth yn dweud, faint o bwysig a dylanwad ydy gestalt i dy waith oherwydd ei tariad psychological, I can't say that word, psychological.
Dwi'n meddwl dwi angen fawr, really. Dwi angen fatha, mae gymysgedd y gwaith fi lle dwi yn wneud lot o ymchwil, ond dwi'n rybys efo enwa. A mae ymchwilio amdan sut mae dy bren yn gweithio, ond hefyd sut wyt ti'n ymateb i bethau hefyd, sut mae dy bren yn gweld lliwiau, a sut mae yn rhywbeth diddorol i fi. Ond dwi yn warthus. Un munud mae mewn, dwi'n anghofio beth aredio. So I'm just saying that I do research. I've researched into colour, research into how your brain works, and research into psychology, but more, I guess, during the years when I was studying to be further ed than anything else, and how your brain works for memory and long-term memory and short-term memory. And but I'm rubbish, so if it goes in, it doesn't stay there very long. So I'm rubbish with people's names. So I have no idea, Anthony, if I'm answering this question correctly. So, but yeah, throw me some books, people. I need to do more reading.
Diolch. A wedyn, dwi'n gwybod sydd wedi weld o'n cwestiwn gyda wr.
Oh, God.
Pam ti heb gael two-person show efo fo?
Oh, seriously, dwi ddim yn cychwyn hwnna'n fyw o flaen pobl. Pam nath fi a Morgan cychwyn mynd allan, a Morgan ddim yn licio gwaith celf fi. So mae'n difyr i gweld sut, achos dwi yn gweld sut mae practice fi wedi datblygu dros y blynyddoedd. So I was just saying then that actually Morgan didn't like my artwork when we first met, which was, that can be quite a hard thing to take, especially, but I think my practice has changed quite a bit, and there is certain, like I said, I work in lots of different ways, so there's a whole other artwork where I concentrate on artifacts and history and my memories of my grandmother and the Welsh language and it's all, but I feel like over the past 5 years, my work has, I've slowly started editing, and I'm looking at the processes more and the materials I use. But it's all, it's all ongoing. If you stop and carry on and just do the same thing, I think you have to keep on developing and learning new things and new methods. And a lot of the work I'm doing now is work I'm returning to that I've left at some point, and then I've gone back to. I just wish I could do it part-time, full-time. That'd be pretty cool. And yeah, Morgan, yeah, whatevs.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr, Bex. Dwi wedi cael ambell sylwad. We've had a few comments as well, so I'll just read them quickly. So one from Menai saying, love these lovely pattern work. Diolch Menai. A wedyn un gyn Kiki. One from Kiki, I love the energy and spontaneity. And one from Carosen, really inspiring, Bex. Love seeing your work and discovering the process.
Diolch fawr iawn. Cael geg o'n?
Mae'n ein arall i dod, dwi'n gwybod os ti eisiau ato fo. It's just one quick one. Do you have any advice on how to get your work out there?
I think that is one I would be a really good one to answer after Susan has been. And I think all three of us can really answer that one, because it's some people straight away, others like myself, it takes a hell of a long time. So I think, yeah, definitely let's put a pin on that one, and we'll talk about that straight after Susan.
Right. Yeah, that's why I asked maybe read better afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Bex. Thank you.
Diolch, dwi'n cael ceg.
Iawn. Dwi'n siŵr chi gyd yn joio hynna hefyd. So nesa sgynnon ni ydi Susan Cantrill-Williams. So the next we've got is Susan Cantrill-Williams. Susan's got a piece in the exhibition called Composite Waterscape, I believe, Susan. And it's a laser cut painting, I think, as well. But I'll let Susan carry on with the introduction.
Yeah, okay. Now let's hope this is all going to work. Oh, I can't see myself anymore. Can you see me? Can you see anything?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to talk about the piece that's in the exhibition in a minute, and just tell you a little bit about myself. Basically, I've always been an artist, somebody who draws, somebody who makes marks. I'm more interested probably in mark making than anything else, and developing skills. I found it really difficult sort of handling this talking on Zoom. I mean, it's not the first time I've done it, but I find it really awkward. I like to see my audience, if there is one there. But I thought, well, I'll just show you some of the drawings that I've done first, and then try and explain where I come from. Basically, I started off being always drawing, little girl, painting. That was my thing. I was fortunate, I was able to go and do foundation, and then I decided to do ceramics. Always interested in 3D items, objects. Actually worked as a repeat thrower in Cornwall and North Wales, which is quite an experience. Then had a family, still drawing. So, and kind of then after I needed a job to support the family. I'm sure it's a very familiar story. I worked as a lecturer for 20 years, full time for most of it, but always drawing. I was lucky enough to win an award, and as kind of as a reward, the college let me study for a master's because I could never have afforded to have done it on my own. And just carrying on drawing. And the drawings that I'm going to show you have all been made in the last no more than 4 years old. So this is the first one. It's called Blodwen's Pets, because I did a thing at Llandudno Library where they got a skeleton of Blodwen. She's really old. It's ancient, and there was a lovely story with it about they'd found it down a crevice in the Little Orme with a pig, and they reckon she'd been chasing this pig and it had fallen down this crevice. So I was up at the Little Orme and I made some drawings, but this one I could actually see pigs in it as well as I was making it. I mean, a drawing away that is a mark in a way that is sometimes it's figurative and sometimes it's abstract. This isn't a great slide of this because it's a much bigger picture. Okay, so let's get on to the next one if I can. Where is it? Next. Where are the rest of the slides gone? Slide. No. Let's see. Oh, God.
Susan, if you clicked on the slideshow, did it come up then?
No, it didn't. Oh, hang on. Yeah. Right, this is one of the Little Orme. I put this because it was quite figurative. I did it while I was, not the Little Orme, it's of the Morva in Conway. This one, I spent hours and hours on this.
I'm not seeing your screen at the moment. So.
You can't see my screen? Oh, sorry about that. Oh, God. I'm not very good at this, am I? Back we go.
It's all right.
I can see them all, they're great. So where's it? I can hear you.
Try having it on slideshow and then.
Yeah, can you see nothing?
You see you.
Oh, that's good. I can't see me. I can't see. Oh, there you are. Oh. I should imagine I've forgotten to share screen. Okay. Start again. No. Get there in a minute. I do panic on this, you know, it's awful. Slideshow, where are we gone?
Okay.
Well, can you see? Right, okay. That's one of the Morva. This is the one I spent ages on, which is Abba Falls, and I've done a lot of work up there. I did some mark making of these drawings when I was in gallery last year with the Health Girl thing. This is quite a simple drawing, and it was made looking at some images that I actually photographed from a plane when I was driving over, flying over Wrexham, and it was the heather cutting, because they cutting the they cut the heather there. The thing is, being a landscape painter, artist, or what have you, is that I'm looking all the time at what's happening, what we've done to the landscape, and trying to record it. I'm only an observer. I'm not political. This piece here, I made it for an exhibition that we had. I was a member of House. I I had a studio there for a while, and this was called Return. And it was about looking back at work that we'd made, but I actually made this one for it because the work that I'd made was so big I couldn't get it on the wall. But this was sort of smaller pieces, and they didn't take so long to make. And again, it was about drawing the marks that we'd that I'd seen and made on the Great Orme, I think it was. But I mean, I've always had this issue about having a family and only having 20 minutes to get out there and make a drawing. So I got quite quick at it, but not quick enough. So I've always felt I've sort of missed quite a lot. So then laser cutting. And this was when I decided that this was going to I was going to be able to make things a lot quicker. It took me at least 6 months to make 6 files. And this is when I met the incredible Manai, who I think's watching. And she showed me, and her patience was unbelievable on how to translate my drawings and make them into from rasters into vectors using coral, and getting the laser to cut different levels. So they had quite it's not a 3-dimensional effect. It's just like a surface effect. I mean, originally I thought I was going to make these plates and just make prints quickly, but the process and the textural qualities that I was getting, and the way that if I worked really hard, I could make this machine actually copy or follow my hand of where I was drawing, you know, what I'd drawn. I was completely enthralled with it. And I lived for my Fridays, going down there and finding out what I could do. And then we had lockdown, and they just sent me a little note to say, oh, we closed now and haven't opened again. And it was kind of, I was quite desperate because I'd got myself a research grant, and I got to make a piece for Clown, which I'll show in a minute. And it had led on to all sorts of things. I made a film in the landscape, looking at different quarries, and the amount of information I made and collected last year was huge. I've never, you know, during my foundation, my degree, my master's, I never collected that much stuff or made that much work, and and I've still got it. And I've got tables and 2 studios full of it. And you'd have thought that I would have just carried on and used the period of time to collate it all together, but I haven't. I just kind of stopped working. But never mind. I made this piece when I knew about transition. I put it together. I sorted it out, and I looked at it, and it was quite important. I made 2 pieces for transition, but this is the one that was selected. And this is Abba Falls, and it's 2 paintings and a laser etching. And it's going out in the landscape and making the colours, and then thinking about how you're going to make the drawing of the rocks and the forms and putting it together. And I made a lot of work, but I'm not very pleased with a lot of it. Less than 1%, I did quite like this one. So, you know, but I like the other one that I submitted better, which is this one. And this is actually 3 pieces of work collaged together. But it's fine, because this is more about the view from the window here, and the using the colours of that I see in the morning, because the morning arrives right in my bedroom window here. It faces east, and where we live now, it's down the side of a mountain, and it's sort of like that, and it kind of just reminded me of that. But I think that's probably quite personal, this one. So but it's got a raster, a JPEG, a painting, and a vector in it as well. This one, I did start to collect a lot of the bits and pieces together, and it was an experiment for the my multiples at Plus Bodford. I made 10 similar pieces. I cut them right down. It was the last thing that I did at Pontio before it closed. And I thought, this is a great opportunity to make some original art and to get it out there, and to make it affordable, and see how it goes, you know. So this was one of the initial pieces. And of course, I actually recycled a load of pieces of artwork that was about mountains and water, you know. I managed to make 10 pieces that were all the same, of which some, up to my amazement, well, I suppose I shouldn't be amazed, Julie's managed to actually sell a couple of these, so that's really good. Now this, I'm going back in time a little bit now. This was one of the pieces that I started to make, and it's laser etching, and it's vectors, and it's laser etched into acrylic. And I just felt that the quality of this, so it's got a black painting behind it as well, a black drawing, and it's layered, and it's you know, it's got that kind of quality that I was looking for, because I think it's relatively contemporary. So with this, I thought I need to get, you know, I'm always trying to think about how the landscape looks to me, and sometimes it feels like this, but I thought, yeah, but there's no light in it. So then, next part of the journey, I went off and did some work with a group called Blink, who do projection, and they actually showed me how to project work down onto really tiny areas. So I got these drawings, and I wanted to make some round items, but time was limited. So I thought, well, I'll make some cubes. I can make etchings and paintings, and I can collage them together, or I can make them clear, and I can put part of the film that I'd made through the work. Now I'm going to change now into no, I don't know what I'm going to change it. I'm going to try and get the other bit of the thing, or maybe I should just go through these first. Oh, that's the last, this is kind of the last bit, because this is what I'm doing now. I'm just doing more painting. I haven't got access to what I was doing. I can't complete the next stage of the project, which was actually called Trace. Oh, I can't say it in Welsh. or rhan, I think. And the Welsh word's much more interesting than the English one, because it's not just a trace, it's about things that are left behind. So with that in view, I've actually started making these paintings. This is a really bad slide of it because it's through glass and it's not got any white bits on it at all. But never mind, I quite like this one, and I think it shows that painting has actually changed massively while I've been doing the 3D work. Now let's see if I can get this one. Can you see this? You're all laughing at me. Can't you hear me?
Laughing at backs, but no, we can see we can still see the slideshow.
Okay, let's close that. Gone. Oh, okay, now we're going to do this again. Can you see that?
It's coming, I think.
Oh, this is my problem. I'm too quick with this. It's not instant enough. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, now this was a piece that I made for Clown last year. Let's just quieten it, shall we? And it's got the film that I made actually projected through. And this was the maquette for what I wanted to make next. But I do need to make it more. It's not what I want. It's just, but it shows that it can be done. And that's about it. Are you still laughing at me?
No. Is it, when you say that's not what you want, did you want something larger, or was it
large? The idea about making the drawings, putting them through something that was transparent,
yeah,
and then projecting the ideas that I'd, you know, of the film that I'd made,
yeah,
onto each facet of that. You know, I only had one projector to do that with. I didn't have lots of them.
yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. I could actually do that forever. It was just
the layering and lights and the shadows it would make. Yeah, that excites me.
The idea of making something that's immersive, something actually is representative of the light and what you actually get out there. Bex said something right on the first talk in one of the comments, and that was, is the urge enough? And I really felt that was, you know, you can talk about this and you can intellectualize about it, but actually if you don't want to do it, you know, and you've got to want to do it, and you've got to want to be able to do it all the time. You know, layering up and getting that idea of making something that is representational for yourself, to me is the driving force. That's all I can say, really. Is anybody still watching?
Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much. That was all really interesting. And just to point out, a lot of the images of Sue's work, as she said, doesn't give it credit because there's so much layers and details within it. It's really worth seeing them in the flesh if you can, because they're beautiful. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Susan.
Thank you.
So we got some comments. So I'll just go back through them and then we'll come back to the questions. So if anybody's got any more questions or comments, please do share them now. So from Menai, Susan, she says, such a pleasure and lovely experience to work with you. Missing our chats at Fab Lab, amazing work.
Well, perhaps it'll happen again. I mean, I can't imagine not working with Menai again. I really can't. I mean, you know, she was inspirational as well as being a fantastic teacher.
We love Menai. She's
Yeah.
a good one. And then Peter Lewis has commented that, wow, they're visually dynamic. Great work. And that is all we've got at the moment. So I don't know if anybody else has got any questions or any comments that they'd like to make, or anything else from Denise or Bex. Please say now or forever hold your peace. Otherwise, we'll go back to the question that Morgan asked earlier, which was, do you have any advice on how to get your work out there? You can all answer this one, so you can all unmute yourselves. Susan, do you mind stop sharing, please?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I love IT. I mean, I do. It's just, I've always, but it doesn't love me. I've got no instinct for it, none. Sorry.
Right, thank you. Who wants to go first in answering the question then? Any takers?
No one.
No one. Nobody has any advice.
No, I think it's dalaty down. You know, you have to keep going. I could fill 10 massive folders with all my no letters that I've received over the years, and you just keep going.
Yeah.
But my issue with me is I don't take good photographs of my work, or I don't document my work. And you know, and the amount of times I kept on telling my students when I was a tutor, you know, document, photograph, and I never listened to myself either. Yeah, you need to have good images and to make sure that you're applying for something that is actually relatable to your work. For years after graduating, I stopped doing the practice I was doing, and I was I was pretty much doing illustration, but I kept on applying for fine art things. And I know maybe some will have a go at me going, yes, but you can apply for fine art things if you're doing illustration, which you can. But what I'm trying to say is there's certain exhibitions, galleries that you just know they're not, you need to research who is your audience, or you know, there's no point applying if it's I don't know, a commercial gallery, for instance, and what is, I don't know, a blue tack on a piece of wall. You know, you need to think about who what you're applying for. But my best advice is dalati da. Dyfal parhau.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just, like Beck said, it's like you get, for that acceptance, you get at least 10 rejections, but it is about keeping going and just keep submitting stuff, keep putting stuff out there, keep submitting it, do the research. Like Beck said, it's like research the magazine that you're submitting to, or the publication, or the gallery. What kind of work do they like? I suppose my failing is that I'm a bit impetuous, and I kind of leave it all to the last minute and then go, oh, I'll just put this in. And then I'm really surprised when I get a rejection. It's like, maybe if I'd just been patient and planned that a bit better, or thought about it a bit more, I might have got further. But yeah, I mean, because I've come to it late as well, it's like I'm quite prolific in my work and quite driven about putting stuff out there. And I am putting stuff out all the time. I'm always submitting. So
I think now it's different, isn't it? Because you have had this kind of all the galleries closing everywhere, you know. I mean, I've put stuff out on. I've opened an Etsy shop, and I've started using Instagram, and I have got. It's been massively hard work. It's so ridiculously hard. It's almost not. worth doing. Is it? I don't know. Oh, it is, because I've picked up a group of people who know each other in London, and they have actually been, and it's not through the Etsy, it's through Instagram, and they have actually been buying work from me. I mean, I was quite surprised how much work I did actually sell. I think it was August. They just all wanted work for their painting. They'd all got contacts with Wales. I thought that was quite interesting, and they were kind of missing being at home. I think, you know, they were sort of like self-isolating down there in kind of in cities, and they weren't probably used to, you know, living there, but which was nice, and they were very appreciative of what I was trying to do, you know. I mean, they've had some of the laser images, and they've had some straightforward paintings. Instagram was it was Anne, and Anne Catherine said, "Oh, you've got to use Instagram." So I did actually start putting them on. It's difficult. You've got to pack them, you've got to insure them, and you've got to get them off the next day, which is not good for me. So, but that is a new following and a new audience, and it is very important before you apply to a gallery that they want that kind of work. I mean, it is so easy to you know, have a painting that is abstract and find that you've applied to a gallery that's really only selling figurative work, and vice versa. You know, I mean, you have to know, because I mean, the last 4 years I'm not making a living at it now, but I mean, I have been, you know, paid for my studio, paid my car, paid for my food. So it is possible to do it. But the amount of rejections, I mean, 10 folders, well, I've been at it longer than you, Bex.
But what I also wanted to say is that that although people think artists in the studio is isolated, but really art, and in its various forms, because there's lots of different artists, you know, really it's that community and that tribe. And wherever I've worked, I've lived in Cardiff, I've lived in London, I've always found a community or that tribe where you can get that support, and you can get that feedback, and you can get you can flow and off each other. And I think, you know, and that's what's so fab about Karen, that, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I've done purely because I am a member, and whether that is a members exhibition or something else, that has helped me to keep being creative in a place, you know, we live in North Wales or in Gwynedd, where, you know, we don't have the luxuries of Liverpool and Manchester and London and Cardiff and Swansea. Contemporary galleries are far between. You know, there's a hell of a lot of commercial galleries here for traditional artworks, but there isn't many contemporary galleries. So to have, I think that's really important. So whether you're an artist that wants to exhibit your work to sell, whether you're an artist who wants to exhibit your work to just exhibit, or whether you are a community artist that wants to get out there and immerse themselves in the community, I still think as an artist, you still need that tribe or that group or whatever forum or whatever you want to use. You know, we are sociable people, and although Morgan's been winding me up this evening, how unusual. You know, we are good at bouncing and being honest with each other. Brutal, actually, sometimes when you kind of show a new piece of work, because you need that brutality and honesty sometimes that I think you don't get. Sometimes you do get if you're in universities, and after that you might not get that, you know, honest. And I think you always need that one person to say it as it is.
Yeah.
lead.
So I've just got to say that Trevor, my partner, he's just saying, you're wasting your time. Just paint. No. So he's always said it. He's always said, right, you know, I've had 30, 40 years of it, you know, wasting your time, just paint.
I think contacts. Sorry, Bex.
Yeah. No, I can just see that Peter's trying to write stuff, and I'm not. Yeah. What's he written?
So is that asking, do you think galleries have become more difficult to show in recently, and they seem to have their own agenda, at least less open to call local artists? I
think you can't summarise everyone under the same. I think you have to say specifically which galleries, which style of galleries. Like all the big galleries across the country, yeah, they have their own agenda. There's these running themes, and there's a certain people they want, and there's hotspots in this, and there's fashion trends. It's a horrible thing to say, but there is. And, you know, they will go after that. I think it all depends what gallery are you referring to, really. And I think it was like that way before the pandemic, you know.
Yeah.
I remember talking to someone just before I went to Venice, and she was saying, she was a curator in a quite established art gallery, and she said, well, on trend now is if you're a female artist with 30 years career and you're in your 50s and 60s, then you're hotcakes at the moment. That's who everyone wants to exhibit. And she said, and that's how it is. It just goes into fashion trends, you know? And or are you an artist that does cross blends fine art and craft together? But I don't know, it all, I don't know, it all depends on which particular gallery you're talking about, really.
I agree.
And which curator as well, because with a change of curator, the style changes. Some galleries have no waiting list, others have 2, 3, 5 years. So, you know, I don't know. Anyway.
Yes. It does depend totally on the galleries, as you say, Bex. So it's hard to answer it fully in that sense. And another comment from Peter is that, Bex, you've set up something new during lockdown. Does this mean that there is an opportunity still in lockdown?
I think for the individual, really, like Susan said, you said yourself, you felt you couldn't carry on with what you really wanted to be doing. Yeah. Whereas I hadn't been doing any work because I work full time, and knew that I would be foolish to waste this opportunity to concentrate on just exploring, even if I never, those both pieces of work, never thought I'd exhibit them. They were just for me to play and explore the material and see where it went. So it's circumstances, isn't it? Circumstances, yeah, it is. Your mindset, what inspires you, I think, don't put too much pressure on yourself either. There was all those stuff going on, going, oh, you could write a book, or, or make a new body of artwork. I tried not to put that pressure at all on myself. I used my artwork to help me through it. I mentally needed to create and be creative. And so I think we don't know where we are. We're still in the same, we're still in this unknown situation now during the winter. And I think don't put too much pressure on yourself. If you want to be creative, stop worrying about where it's coming from, what people think of it. Just be action. Stop talking, just action, and just create. And if you don't like it, put it in the corner. Don't put it in the bin though. Just put it in the corner and think about it later.
You can recycle everything.
Bizarrely for me, I've been out more than I probably would have done because of lockdown, because there's a whole documentation, there's a whole project there documenting the whole year, really, the whole COVID pandemic thing and everything that's gone with it, you know, everything from the empty supermarket shelves to my bottom field project to the protest to the mask wearing, you know, it's a document of a year that I'm doing, really.
Yeah.
So that's why I keep having to have COVID tests, because I'm out and about more than I would have been.
Well, luckily, all clear.
Luckily, all clear. I think there's a couple more things in the Q&A.
Yeah, on the Q&A. Yeah. So I don't know if you've all seen it, but just to lay it out there for everyone, for all, from Anthony, all roots and psychology in different ways is evidently important in all three of your works. Denise, the root of emotion and oneself and others. Bex, the root of the mind and psyche and the self. And Susan, the root of the land and the desire to engross oneself in it. All seem psychologically driven practices that is clearly deeply rooted in all three artists. From Anthony. From you. If you all agree with that, or if you want to say anything about that.
I think so, yeah, for me, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely psychologically rooted.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, and if you can send me some people I need to read up on, please do. Give me a private message later. But no, I think narratives and storytelling and subconscious, although it doesn't seem like I'm trying to tell a story, but in my head I am trying to give a narrative or a message. And I think those things run, those, and you know, that's what we've all been doing since the beginning of time, is say a story and say a message. And I think, you know, obviously with the three of our work, there is that interesting layers in the material, in the process, as well as the psyche.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, Bex, it's something that's natural for people to do, is to share those stories and tell those stories. And we've got one more question from Morgan, not husband Morgan, another Morgan.
Is there two Morgans?
Would you recommend a student to live or study in London, as that's something he's thinking of doing himself? That's open to you all.
Well, Denise, you're from London, aren't you?
If you can afford it, go for it.
I've lived in London. Once again, I think, yeah, it's up to which college are you applying for, or what university. Can you afford it? What course are you applying for?
Yeah.
I think I think embrace, like you do have to take risks in life. But you know, is this to study for next year, I'm assuming? Yeah, I'm guessing so. I've had friends, Camberwell College, friends go to Goldsmith, friends go to Royal College. I've not met anyone yet that's gone to the Royal Academy, although I know plenty of people that have tried.
Morgan's just said CSM fashion illustration.
Ooh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend went to St Martin's.
Yeah, St Martin's, yeah.
Yeah.
No, if you're going to do fashion, it's kind of like, yeah, London.
Yeah, definitely.
It's either London or, and then after that, really. But I'm completely out of education at the moment. I haven't been a tutor for nearly 3 years. But it was, yeah, London, and then I guess Manchester, but London. Go and embrace it all, soak it all up. Rather jealous.
Okay, well, I think that's it, everyone. And he says thank you very much. Yeah, so thank you all very much. Diolch yn fawr iawn pawb.